Good afternoon. My name is Jévoneé Rhea I, and today I'm going to be speaking with you about cochlear implants. Are they beneficial for learning in deaf students? What are some of the advantages or disadvantages of students that are implanted, that have a cochlear or that's wearing a hearing aid, or those that aren't, that just use interpreting? What are their learning outcomes? So myself, being in a deaf culture, I've observed many different aspects of students implanted and those that are not. Interpreters are always present and should always be present when a deaf student is in the classroom or in the vicinity. There should always be an interpreter present. I've learned and seen and observed myself that this does not always happen in public school education. I know that when students become older in age, their requirements and needs are limited, and the things that they're available to them when they were younger are no longer as accessible. Most teachers, not most, I'll say that all teachers should be mic'd when in class, because what the sound waves do, it eliminates all the extra sounds sometimes that's happening in the classroom. Like for you and I, we can actually sit there, engage, and hear the teacher talking and listen to what she's saying. And for the deaf students, they have to sound out all those things. That teacher is standing there talking, and at the same time, someone could be walking in the door, so that's a distraction for their cochlear because it's going to hear those sound waves as well. Someone could be tapping their finger. Someone could be tapping their foot. Someone could be going through their phone. It's beeping, making noise. All those things that student has to subside and put away. So me being an interpreter in a classroom or a communication facilitator, I'll say that, for my student, while a teacher is up there talking, half of the time, they're not mic'd. They think that because someone's in the class with the student and that's interpreting for them and that they have a cochlear on, then that just automatically brings their sound to 100%, which that's not the case. Most cases, these students are not getting the full lesson because it's going based off the requirements of what the school district and the school board thinks is what these students actually need. When I know firsthand, students that are implanted, they need to see you forward facing in order to understand clearly what you're saying, and at the same time have an interpreter there so that the interpreter can break it down in ASL form so that they can understand exactly what's expected of them. Now, let me say, I'm going to just give information to parents who are considering implanting their students or their children with implants. Think of the big picture. When they're in class, are they getting all of the assistance that they're needing and that they require? Because 9 times out of 10, they aren't. And because of this, their learning is, is disabled. So they're put into special education courses because their reading is remedial. But you have to understand that with deaf kids and deaf students, they don't use our language, which is proper language. They're more of a broken language per se. That's what they like to say. So you have to explain it to them in their culture, in their language, in their wording. That's just something that needs to be understood. And then the parent also should be more involved in how the child is getting their education. Sorry about that. But also, I don't feel that all students that are implanted are receiving the best education. Because for one, all the tools that are required to give them a full-on 360 view of what's being taught in the classroom, it's not actually being executed. So they are having to have an interpreter present along with the teacher being mic'd, and this gives our kids a learning curve. They are stagnant at a certain level because they're not getting all of the requirements that they need. So parents, when speaking to the doctor and wondering and considering getting your children implanted, don't think it's an easy fix, because it's actually not. It's a lot of work, and it requires a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of commitments, not just for the student. Get more involved and try to understand how that child is actually learning and what all is needed for them to get a great understanding of what's being taught to them. Don't think, and teachers as well, just because an interpreter is in the classroom for your kids from kindergarten on up to 12th grade, that does not mean that that student actually understands everything that that interpreter is saying. Because again, while they're in school, they're learning the language. They don't know it because they're deaf. They're not born knowing sign language. They are being taught sign language. Then you have it where they're learning signing exact English, which is what is used in elementary through junior high to teach them how to read properly for education purposes. But then once they're in high school, that's when they actually learn their language, which is ASL, American Sign Language, opposed to SEE, which is signing exact English. Before you take that step and give your children implants, actually do some research. And from my point of view, I would say do a little bit more work and understand. Go meet with some people that are deaf and hard of hearing and that have been implanted. What are their woes and what are their do's and don'ts of it? Because half of them that I talk to, they don't like it. They wish they wouldn't have been implanted. And if you want a good read on the education as far as what to look for, there's an article by Ibrahimi Amir Abbas et al., Balanced Performance of Deaf Children with and Without Cochlear Implants, Acta Medica Arnica, Volume 54, Number 11, November 26, pages 737 through 742. EBSCO hosts. I hope that this information was informative and that you will consider before getting your child implanted. Thank you.